Hi everyone, this is Trenton Barber, and I'm going to be talking about academic libraries and their adaptation to offering digital reference. While I was observing Library X, I was able to glean a lot of insight on various factors that are important to academic libraries. However, I want to focus on how digital reference is taking hold and what that means in an academic setting. I will be giving a short description of the library that I visited, including who makes up the clientele, who works there, and what the facility is actually like. I will then look at the different forms of virtual reference offered by LibraryX. In this case, those include chat-based reference, text-based reference, phone-based reference, email-based reference, and virtual consultations. After that, I'll focus on what the virtual reference interview is like, and some of the pros and cons of virtual reference when comparing it to a traditional reference service. The library I chose for this assignment is a large university library provided for the largest university in the city I was in. There are actually multiple libraries in the system, but I chose the one that is most accessible and most often used by the students. When speaking with the employees while I was observing, I was able to glean a lot of information about this particular library. Clientele is always important to be aware of, even in an academic library. In this case, the primary clientele for the library consists of university students, along with staff and faculty at the university. However, there are other groups of people who visit and use the services of Library X. Secondary clientele would include university alumni, residents of the city the university is in, and distance learners. Finally, special clientele include those who are there as visiting staff and faculty, and those who are there to visit the archives and special collections. There are a total of 16 professional librarians at Library X. There are also 14 non-professional staff members, and roughly 25 to 30 student workers, depending on the semester and need. I was able to work with and interview people who ranged from student workers to professional librarians, as well as the assistant dean of the library. Library X is a 4-level library. The lower level is in the basement. In the lower level, you can expect to find a special area for maps, an area with a large amount of microfilm collections, and testing services for the students. Moving up to the first floor, that's where you'll find the circulation desk. It also has a bunch of computer labs and study areas for students. This is also the level where vending machines and a cafe are provided. Going up another level, there are many study areas for individual students and groups. There's also a general collection of books and a number of music scores. And then the top level is where archives and any special collections are housed. Now, Library X has many different ways you can reach a reference librarian. In-person options include Ready Reference, Roaming Reference, Bibliographic Verification, and in-person consultations. On the other hand, virtual reference options are available by chat, text, email, or phone. They also have the ability to have a consultation with the librarian digitally, rather than having to come into the library itself. I was able to watch many virtual interactions while observing the workers. It seemed that chat and text were the most often sought out, but email and phone were common. I didn't have a chance to observe a virtual consultation while I was there. The workers told me those are often less popular, which that isn't all that surprising. These consultations are traditionally more in-depth and less often scheduled in person as well. I did my best to understand how a virtual reference interview was similar to, and different from, a traditional reference interview. The truth is, I saw many of the same skills needed for a traditional interview are just as useful for those who are doing virtual reference. One of the things that is important is being able to balance the task of being approachable while still being professional. This means not using text abbreviations and just ensuring you aren't being overly informal when speaking with someone, even if you're on a chat or text, etc. Something else that is important virtually is the ability to communicate clearly in a written conversation and knowing when to ask questions. This is really important for a virtual reference because you don't have the same cues as you would in a traditional reference situation. You can't see body language. It's also important to make sure you are keeping a patron aware of what is happening. You don't want to start looking up information without telling them what's going on, how long it might take. Finally, especially with texting and chat, you always want to make sure you ask a patron if you've answered all their questions before ending a conversation. I found that there are both pros and cons with virtual reference. Some of the cons include cost of buying new software and training staff to use it. Another negative is the lack of verbal and body language cues. Virtual reference can also make communication a little slower by virtue of needing to type everything out. However, I found many positives. A student at the university can get in touch with the librarian from anywhere. They also may be anonymous if that's something that is important for them. They can save texts and emails so they can look at them later. It's also great for those who have impairments with speaking and hearing. This gives a pretty good primer of how virtual reference works in the academic library. I hope you learned something new watching this presentation, and I want to thank you all for your attention.